Hi, and welcome to Manual of Arms. Today, we're here in my war room, and I want to discuss the M14, or in this case, a Springfield M1A with all original US GI parts. This was the shortest lived US service rifle, aside from the Krag, with production starting in around 1958 and discontinuation in 1964. So, about 6 to 8 years, depending on what sources you read. This has found its niche in today's military, but as far as a standard issue rifle, this is no longer in service. The M14 can trace its roots back to the Second World War, as early as 1944. Even though we used the M1 Garand all throughout the Second World War, unlike the Germans who were constantly experimenting and doing different things with their firearms, we still wanted to improve the Garand. So the US had some criteria, so the DoD put it out. They wanted the rifle to be lightweight, select fire, and detachable magazine. So I won't get into the nitty gritty. There were trials held, there were modifications made. They pushed out this firearm called the T44 after several variants. Eventually, it led to the M14, very similar to what you see here. Based on the type of war that we were fighting, right, in Vietnam, in the jungle, this proved, especially with select fire, to be unreliable. It was very difficult to control when you were shooting full auto. They did, for control under full auto, implement this. It's I guess it's a, for lack of a better word, a brace. So you could kind of brace it against your shoulder as you're firing. But even then, it was not very controllable. So eventually, I guess the armorers would put a stop or like a block to make this thing semi-automatic only. Ultimately, based on the needs at the time, i.e. Vietnam, the M14 was not the ideal rifle. Should we have gone with, I don't know, the FAL? Probably. But then we wouldn't have this really sweet looking battle rifle that we used for like 8 years. There's more videos, like Ian from Forgotten Weapons put out a great one getting into the nitty gritty of why specifically this rifle failed. But I won't do that today. I want to get a close-up and we can look at the operation of this rifle. Taking a look at the M14, you can see just how similar it is to the Garand. At 44 inches long and 9.2 pounds, the footprint is essentially identical. You can definitely see how the Garand had a very direct influence. Upon pulling the charging handle to the rear, the bolt will be held open by the magazine if it's inserted. To remove the magazine, the mechanism is very similar to the AK platform. Push the tab forward and rock the magazine forward. Once the magazine is out, the bolt can be sent forward by pulling slightly to the rear and releasing. To hold the bolt open on an empty magazine, push down on the bolt catch while pulling the bolt to the rear. Externally, the safety mechanism is near identical to the Garand. The rifle is safe when the safety tab is inside the trigger guard. To take this rifle off safe, you will need to insert your finger inside the trigger guard and push the safety forward. The rifle can then be fired. The sights are near identical to the Garand as well. This particular one has the hooded aperture, which is usually designated for national match rifles. For the feds watching, you can see the selector switch hole is empty. This is a semi-auto rifle only. There are replica switches you can buy, but I quite like my dog. The M14 came standard with a bayonet lug, but on some M1As, especially those of the post-ban era, these aren't present. So that was the M14. A quick word on the Springfield M1A. Springfield started putting out the civilian version of the M14 called the M1A. They still have it in production today. They've been making it for, I don't know, like over 40 years now. Originally, when they started making them, they had very, very high quality forged receivers, and they just used all US GI parts. Nowadays, obviously, the stock has run dry. They make all their new parts, but this particular one was made in 1985. It's a very low serial number, under 50,000. And it still has, when I pulled it apart, all US GI parts minus the receiver. So it's a great find. It's a great stand-in for an M14 since I don't want to drop 35 grand on one at this point. But that about wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time.